though they mean nothing. These women have done us proud as a country. They won the Africa Cup. They've improved a lot under Desiree Ellis.
To practice first, and please allow me to individually acknowledge the ladies black in black, dressed and clad in UNI's crest and national team flag. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to first acknowledge and greet Banyana Banyana, Kaylin Swart, Gabriela Salgado, Robin Moodley, Linda Mutlalo, Hilda Makaya, Amukelang Mutau, Wendy Shongwe, Sibulele Shongweni, Rigo Ngobeni, Katlego Muletsane, Spumelele Shomase, Spumelela Wazukbala, Melinda Khadiete, Kolosa Diada, Figile Makama, Nomvula Khwale. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Nomvula Khwale, Makubela Tisetso, Ramo Lepele Bohang, Bambanani Mbane, Matlo Noko, Refilo Jane, Tembi Khatlane, Karabo Dlamini, Bonge Kamete, Not All Okesane, Andy Dlamini, and Jermaine Sopasenu. Please, a big round of applause to the entire team, the coach Desiree Ellis, and the technical team by extension. With that being said, please allow me to welcome the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Minister Zizigotwa, who joins us, the Deputy Minister, Mukau Mafu, who joins us, SAFA President, Dr. Jenny Jojan, from the Motsepe Foundation, Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe, and of course, Chairman of Mamelodi Sundowns, who joins us as well, Dr. Motsepe, but also, by extension, sponsors of Banyana Banyana, whom I've seen in the building, Sasol, who are with us, the SABC as well, who are with us. Before I begin, and I know it's been a tumultuous 4 days for South Africans in general, but I think kudos to the room being filled like this, because it is only a representation of what is happening outside of this room, with South Africans pulling together for this common cause, with South Africans together saying, we want to see the best of our Banyana. It was such a jovial mood about 2 weeks ago when they were announced, and they got to get their walk, and we all celebrated with them, and want to go to the World Cup in that spirit that all of this began in. I had an amazing quote about the World Cup that I was going to begin with, but as I walked around and spoke to people, something bigger than that happened, and it showed and it embraced and it further amplified the power of women, not only in the women that we see around the room here today, but most importantly, in who they are and what they are in our lives. There's a lady who sits in the crowd. Her name is Nomusa Dladla. She is not in sport. She is just a mother who today said, I will accompany my 2 boys, whom I'm so proud of, who've got a job in sport now, to go and see what they do for a living. Because every day, I'm the one, Andile, who wakes them up to make sure that they go. I read every story they write on the internet. And today, I want to go stand with them and be with Banyana as well. I'm just a mother who sits at home, but today, Unomusa Dladla, Umaga Mandla no Andile, sits with us here. Sits with us as just a supportive mother who wants to be there for her children. And my apologies, Tula. You know, this was drawn a while back and you'll understand because you've been part of the process. But also with us here is the president of the South African Football Players Union, Thulaganyo Kgaushubedu, who joins us as well. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have all read, seen, facts, truths and untruths about what the last couple of days have been. Today, we sit here today and to brief you, the media in South Africa as a whole, because through you, the media, you're able to take all of this and make sure that the world who watches us at this moment know what it is and how it is that we as South Africans deal with things. So please allow me to begin by asking the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Zizigotwa, who over the weekend did not even enjoy his Durban July because his phone was ringing, and the pianos were not quite going in. But he made sure to get back to Johannesburg so he could personally deal with matters at hand. Minister, please, if you could take the podium. A big round of applause for Minister Zizigoto.
Thank you very much, Andile. And good morning firstly to Banyana Banyana. And good morning to the coach. I don't see her. Good morning to the coach and the rest of the coaching staff, the president of SAFA, and the rest of sporting fraternity that is present here today. Andile started to give us a background, a very colorful background of how everything unfolded. It was on Sunday morning, just before, I think an hour before the start of the game, I received a call from the president of the Players Union to explain the situation, a very concerning situation and worrying situation, which I really appreciated the call, indicating the plight of and the decision being considered by the players. Having listened to a very long conversation, we then agreed that I will make a few suggestions and appeal that one, we need to honor the fixture, and we need to make sure that we avoid any embarrassment to the country as well to the team. And I'm grateful today that Players Union honored that undertaking. There are many details in between which we will not go to, and I will explain why, even as we intervened and advised to both parties that they must not go to the details. I also subsequently received a call from the president of the federation, which is the authority of football in South Africa, President Daniel Alexandria Jordan, who also explained from the football authority point of view what has happened. There's been to's and fro's since the past 48 hours to deal with that issue. I must really firstly appreciate their effort to be able to work together. When we intervened, we were very mindful of the fact that as government, there are limited scope within which we can intervene on these matters. We're quite mindful of the fact that as well, we were invited by both the union as well as by the federation, which is the authority, to help to intervene, to find an amicable solution. We had one-on-one bilaterals with both the union as well as the authority of football, SAFA. One of our main advice, which led to a joint meeting after that of the trio, the tripartite between ourselves, the federation as well as the union. Later, it went to another meeting of a bilateral between the union as well as the SAFA, and many other meetings that followed until late last night. Our advice was that given what has happened, which is now is common cause, if we are to make progress in negotiations, let's not go back to what happened or what led to Sunday, because we're unlikely to make progress. If we're to go back to what happened, we're likely just to pontificate, to be a blame game. So we would have spent the last 48 hours blaming each other. We agreed, and I'm very happy that in that conversation, they've accepted that let's have minimums of how do we move forward. We move forward, one, that we need to make sure that our team lives today as planned to fly to New Zealand and Australia. But secondly, some of the issues we must resolve, we must find a permanent solution so that we don't only resolve them to attend and come back to find the same problems. And some of the minimums led to, later in the evening, that we were to find out that indeed there was some additional funding which was needed in order to meet certain minimums and demands which were set out, which I must indicate that we had an opportunity as well to address the players last night, to express our full confidence on behalf of government and the people of South Africa, including understanding the demands that they were made. In that context, both the president of SAFA and I, having made a few calls around, one of the calls I happened to make was a call to the president of CAF, my brother, Patrice, to explain the situation. Given the fact that we were almost running against time, almost running to the evening of yesterday, and we could not postpone anything. Other people would have said, come later, no, we need to meet, and so on. I want to thank him sincerely for the love of his country and for the love of football. He immediately agreed to make a contribution. That contribution was able to settle, to make a breakthrough to a deadlock, a dispute, which the president of SAFA will speak about when he reads the statement. I must thank both parties. But I think there are certain fundamentals that we've got to work hard to make sure that there is no repeat of what has happened. And we did discuss some of those fundamentals, including, among others, to make sure that we make a call to corporate citizens, like the Motsepe Foundation has done, to make sure that they invest on women's football in the country. The reason, and among others, you do not have a repeat of what has happened to men's football is because you've got this massive sponsorship from corporate citizens. And it's unfair. And that is a kind of patriarchy that also rests and resides with corporate South Africa, in which case we must present our case on behalf of this national pride to say they too deserve what Bafana Bafana deserve, what Springboks deserves, what other national team deserves. We hope over time that as we begin to throw many punches, that will tilt the scales so that we do not find ourselves to where we are today. On behalf of government, on behalf of the department, we want to wish Banyana Banyana well as we leave, and we commit to join them on the 23rd when they play their first game. Women's football in South Africa is not different, and it must not be treated differently. One of the minimums we had highlighted when we met with all stakeholders was that we will not accept any form of discrimination. And that is fundamental. And I've said a while back, when we appointed Deputy Minister and I to this position, we shouldn't be in 29 years into democracy, in 2023, there shouldn't be as a country be a discussion about equal work, equal pay. Because women's rights are human rights. So the discrimination against women, you are discriminating against their human rights. And these are fundamentals that we shouldn't be debating. And I'm sure that over time, between ourselves and other role players, including the Federation, there are matters that we should seriously sit down and talk about. How do we take women's football to another level? I sincerely want to express our gratitude to the partners, to those who came on board. I want to sincerely once more to express my gratitude to my brother, Patrice, who have come on board at a time when almost we needed as a country to make sure that we avoid any embarrassment to our national team, but as well to the country. And I think that will go a long way to send lessons to other corporate citizens, how themselves they can contribute. When we addressed the national team last night, we did indicate to an extent that they were right, and also in the process of negotiations between the two stakeholders. Negotiations are about compromises. You may not get the best, perfect outcome, but it's important to agree on minimums. And those compromises you make must not undermine the rights of the players. It must not undermine also football. And I'm happy that from what we heard is that there has been a lot of progress. We had to address all these what I regard as side issues so that our national team can focus on the game. And I think as they leave tonight, I think their focus will be on the game. And that was our intention, that the issue must not spill over to today as they leave, so that when they leave, there's certainty today to the country, as well there's certainty to them as players, that as they go to New Zealand, Australia, their focus must be on the game. The rest of other issues have been resolved as they relate to the tournament. The rest of other issues, as they relate to football in general, we'll continue to engage with those issues as and when we are able to have time, both with the union as well as the authority, which is SAFA. Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Minister. How heavy is this thing? Can I carry this by myself? Okay, here we go. I want to be close to you. Deputy Minister, I want to be close to you. There we go. I'd rather you don't see me. Yeah. Thank you so much, Minister. I really appreciate that one there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to keep it. The light. Yeah, I'm not the important one. It's fine. Don't worry. Keep the light where it's most important, on the far end and on the stage here. Don't worry about me too much. We're going to keep it moving. I'm going to try keep it brief on myself so that we give ample time to those that need to come up. Next up, from the South African Football Players Union, I see the Secretary General is here as well. Please allow me to welcome the President, Thulaganyo Gaoshubele.
Andy Lereko Holebo, when a program director, Kidumiri Seva Botleva. But Minister, I think you are quite correct in saying we're agreed on a package of measures. And I think the country, ourselves, and everybody else must not underplay the role that you played in bringing us here. Because we were not even prepared ourselves to take anything in the fight. That begins to promote the policies, firstly, of South Africa. And of course, our policies find their expression within the UN conventions and everything that we sign. But we were not going to stand aside and deal with that. But those package of measures makes it very difficult for us to tell you exactly what are the issues that we wanted to address. But we also find comfort in the fact that Dr. Jordan and I have agreed that immediately after this meeting, we will convene in that room so that we deal with those side issues. That's the way that I got from him. And I don't want to doubt what he has told us. But we really appreciate you and your team for ensuring that we are here. And we also thank you, the media, for having raised all these issues, and the support that we get and all that. We are not going to bog you down to a number of issues. However, we want to send appreciation. But I also want you to understand that you've got the 1956 leaders there. We wouldn't be where we are today if it was not because of them. They stood firm, regardless of any pressures. They were told a lot of things which I will address with the minister, which came, some of them unfortunately came from NEC members. We're not going to talk about them. We'll address them, privately, which hurt some of us because they brought us on patriarchy and all that. But they stood firm. One of the most fundamental things that they did was to say, yes, we have funding from FIFA, the 23 of us. We are 26 in camp, as an example. But there's these 3 that are not going to make it to the World Cup, to the main events. They said, what is it that we can do for them? We'll get to that, as to what we agreed when we pronounced as to how we ended up where we are today and the agreements that we reached with SAFA through the president and everybody else. But importantly, they would also have said, it's not only us, the 23, that are guaranteed monies from FIFA. We also have the support staff. The support staff that never gets anything when they go into tournaments. The support staff that nobody cares about when we do other matters. They said, we want to make sure that if, and which was agreed by the way, that we are going to negotiate. If we agree on a figure of 10 rand, the support staff will get 5%. So 50% of whatever they negotiate, they will get that. And I'm raising these issues because I want to tell you that we are led. There is no shortage of leadership in this country. And we need not look further or beyond those a wall, or beyond that wall. There is leadership there. So, Minister, and I think it is important just to take the nation into confidence that we have agreed and the certainty that moving here henceforth, we will be able to focus on the job that we do best. We also appreciate the fact that because there are a lot of things, and we must demystify and reject this notion with the contempt that it deserves. That begins to say, Banyana going on holiday. We must appreciate that there are how many, 200 and something countries who are members of FIFA. Only 32 qualified. And a champion would be made, or whoever wins the championship, it will be out of, those small mistakes. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be that small but defined line, for them to win. So if they don't make it to the quarterfinals or to the next stage, it's not because of anything to do with what they were supposed to have received in the first place. And I think we are addressing this matter specifically also to our country to understand that in football, you can win, draw, or lose. And we appreciate that. Now we appreciate you in any event, Coach Desiree, with your team. And we love you. We love you to bits. And we'll put our necks where it hurts, when it comes to your issues. In closing, I want to say this because both the staff that we represented in these negotiations, as well as these beautiful champions that we have, they wanted us to express and inform the nation as to what is it that we have arrived at, because the FIFA money is made public. And I think the point that I almost forget, my captain, is that yourself and the team, you played a major role because, you were negotiating. You were with us in the negotiations, talking with the president, moving from here to there. And like you said, there are minimums, Minister. And sometimes, there are compromises that we had to make. And we made compromises. That it's okay. We think we deserve this. However, in the best interest of the nation and everybody else, we are willing to come here. As I close, they've agreed and they've requested that we should pronounce on that. And we'll defend this thing to the bitter end. We would not care who thinks otherwise and or who want to say what. That they themselves, including that other 26, that they were not really bound to be sharing the World Cup money with, they will each get about 230. And we've confirmed that with the president of the association. So what's left is to put those things into a document that we'll call an annex. But that doesn't, it's not only that. I said we have represented staff. So which means the 50% of the 230 would be, I don't know the things, but it's 115. So that they would get, we've raised that, and there would have been confirmation. All that is left is for it to be actioned. So we have negotiated in good faith. We have said we will do that. So the staff and them, that's what we get. And in closing, Dr. Precious, we want to also thank you you just don't talk these things of empowerment. You don't talk about all these equal pay. By the way, Minister, we should stop about talking about issues of equality, equal pay, this and that, in this day and age, Andile. We should be talking about how we improve everyone to get what's rightfully theirs. We must move away from there. And Chairman, and I know that you are doing that. Minister, I forgot to acknowledge you and apologies. But we really appreciate what you're doing. And we have no doubt that you would take us to where we want, because the generation that comes after them and after any other person must not be finding themselves sitting here stealing the limelight from them when they're supposed to be going to represent us. Because that's an international relation exercise. We must understand that part. So for us, we really appreciate Dr. Precious, that each time we come knocking, you come and you save us to do that. And we can promise you, Dr. Jordan, ourselves, we will meet, we will thresh out those issues. Sometimes they are not easy issues, we must agree. We all love football, we all love our country, and we'll do what we believe is best in the interest of this game. I think we are now done, and thank you so very much. And thank you for trusting us as an organization. We will bid you farewell this afternoon, but you must be rest assured that at any given time when you call on us, we will be there to respond. And when you come back, as we promised you, we will deal with those issues together with the association, of making sure that you are better professionalized as women, so that when you get to this national squad and you want to talk about issues that relates to monies and all that, it's not because you don't shortchange yourself, because at club level, come month end you get 500 allowance, and when they get there they say they'll give you 3,000, you accept it. But your unity will see you through. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, President. I don't want to read these out loud. I might get you into trouble. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. And of course, on behalf of the players, as a mandate was SAFA speaking. Now, I'd like to welcome the President of the South African Football Association. The Minister called them by full ID names. I will just call you simply Dr. Danny Jordan.
It's still morning. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank the Minister of Sport, Art and Culture, the Honorable Zizi Kodwa, the Deputy Minister of Sport, Honorable Mafu, sitting in front here, the members of the Executive of SAFA, Vice President Zwane is here, the CEO of SAFA. I was trying hard to see Lydia Manyapau. Is she here? Lydia Manyapau, the team leaders, Rafil Wajani, the captain, the other leaders there, Jermaine Sanyapau. I must mention Jermaine. Tembi Khatlana and Andile Dlamini, our coach, Desiree Ellis, the members of the technical staff and administration staff. So I must also introduce our chair of the 2027 World Cup bid. You know, we are making a bid for the Women's World Cup for 2027. This is the World Cup after 2023. Tumi Dlamini, who is sitting right in front here. She has just come back from Ghana, where she had engagement there, and many other countries. And we are happy that we could have you. And thank you for coming to me. Members of the media who are here. I'd like to welcome and thank you for coming. The first fundamental thing in this country is the right to strike. It's a fundamental right. It's a human right. And strike of players in football or in sport is not an unusual thing. It may be strange for us. And when the strike happens, it comes at a strategic time, both in sport and in the industry, so that workers can maximize their gains. That's their gains in any environment. We understand that, we accept that. So that must be understood. And so we don't have any difficulties with that. The events of the past days, however, have been extremely hard on all of us. And it is difficult. Oh, yeah, is a Phil Wejane also, the captain. The coach, for any coach of any team to be faced with these circumstances is very difficult. So our thoughts and support is also there for the coach. And of course, it casts a shadow on an incredible journey of this team. And I spent a good 10 years with this team. In 2018, they lost in a penalty shootout against Nigeria, after beating Nigeria in Accra, Ghana. The clear indication for us that this team is going to be the best team on the continent is when in Lagos, Nigeria, in the Aisha Buhari Cup, they absolutely destroyed Nigeria. 3-0 at halftime. But then they made the South Africans Shibobos, and very soon it was 3-2. Gave them another wake-up call, and I could see this team will be the best women's team ever produced in this country. We then went to Morocco to the African Cup of Nations, and there they emerged. And in the final, in a stadium, I think we just had Mama Joy and 9 others, the stadium was packed. More than 50,000 Moroccan fans. They showed us that they can stand the pressure. And then, of course, at the end, when it was almost over, the referee showed 4 minutes. The assistant referee came with the board, 9 minutes. And we thought, we are done. But they showed strength of character on that day and became the African champions. And when they came back, we announced that we will have pay parity between all players of Bafana Bafana and Banyana Banyana. We paid them 400,000 rand each for winning the African Cup of Nations. You go back in the history and see what Bafana got. Now, there is absolute parity in the payment between Bafana Bafana and Banyana Banyana. The Hollywood bet is on the threshold of becoming a professional league. We built it from nothing. We didn't have a national women's league. We now have. We have 454,000 women players in this country. We built it from 50,000. In the Congress that we had 60 women delegates from our region. We only had 2 when we started. So we have been seeing this progress. That's why this team is well qualified to get into the second round. They have the quality, they have the experience, and we'll see them in their last match before the opening match against Sweden when they play against Costa Rica. And that will give an indication that this team is ready. So we, as SAFA, recognize where are the issues. Clearly, the issue of contract negotiations started too late. So one of the things that we have to do is to start it earlier. what happens is that the coach would announce a preliminary squad of, say, 40, 50 players. The administration will wait until she announces the final squad, which happened on the 25th of June in Pretoria. We were hosted by the Honorable Minister. And then you have the team, and some of the players arrived late. So that is then the starting point of the process. But we recognize it is too late. And therefore there will be difficulties. So we have to start earlier at the point where the preliminary squad is announced. The contracts must be in place and everything must be done. Because when you go to the final squad, you must focus on preparation. When the African Cup of Nations or the World Cup, you must focus there and not wait for the final squad. So clearly, one thing that clearly came out around this issue is that contractual issues must be dealt with earlier. This issue of contract negotiations, England is still negotiating. We are on the way to the World Cup. You'll get on the plane today and tomorrow, and they will be ready to participate there. Other federations are still where we were last Saturday or Sunday. So it's commonplace. And one of the things that is a global issue is the gap between men and women. And even if you go to this World Cup, in the 2022 World Cup, the pool for men players were over 400 million rand, 400 million US dollars. The pool for this World Cup is just over 100 million dollars. So you can see the massive gap. And in spite of FIFA's commitment to pay parity between women players and men's players. And you saw Alex Morgan and Megan Rapinoe on this issue, driving the agenda for pay parity, not just in women's football, in sport. So this gap does not only exist in Banyana Banyana, it exists in all women's sport. It does not exist only in our country, it's a global issue. So we said, while we are dealing with the issue in our country, we must also be advocates for addressing the issue on the continent and within FIFA. And that is what we have made many submission and engagement on that. So we are committed, Honorable Minister, to pay parity. We did not say it, we implemented it last year, and we are supporting this process. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the Motsepe Foundation, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, and Dr. Precious Malloy Motsepe. Thank you very much. Whenever we pick up the phone, whenever we knock, we know the answer is yes. And we are delighted about that. And it doesn't take long. If it's a national issue, a national call, you respond. And so what we saw is that FIFA wrote us a letter, and in the letter indicated, not just for South Africa, all over the world, whether it's England, Germany, they all get 30,000 US dollars. I phoned people in FIFA yesterday because there is another pot of $1.5 million. And I asked them, can we take from this pot to add to this pot? Because we were looking for the additional money. The answer was clearly no. No. In the FIFA letter, it's clear. We are going to audit whether that $30,000 landed in their bank accounts. They're going to audit it. And whether you took from this pot to put in the other pot. The answer is no. So I think the position is clear. So the only other way is we have to find money outside the FIFA money. And that is what we did. And we thank the union. And it is their right. It's their obligation to support players and workers. That is why union exists, to always get the best possible deal for their workers and their members. So we don't have any difficulty with that. So I'd like the opportunity to thank Mr. Zizi Kodwa, the Deputy Minister, who have been active in both the dialogue and engagement with all parties concerned. I'd like to acknowledge the role of our CEO, who spent hours and days in this process of finding a settlement. Is she here? But tell her, I can't see her, that I thanked her publicly for spending, because she told me when we appointed her the CEO, she said to me, you must remember, I'm a woman and I'm a mother, and I've got small children. You cannot expect me to spend long hours when I'm with my children. And now she did exactly what she told me she's not going to do. But that is a commitment of South Africans to say what's in the best interest of our country. And she spent those hours, apologize to our children on our behalf, tell them that the nation is happy with your commitment, that you made those sacrifices. The representatives of the Players' Union, the president here, who worked tirelessly, engaged to find solutions on the issues that needed to be dealt with. I'd also like to thank the coach for her tolerance, her understanding, because it was a difficult matter to deal with. And finally, I want to say to Banyana Banyana, you are one of 4 representatives from Africa. It is South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, Nigeria, Morocco, and our neighbors Zambia that will be traveling to represent Africa. We've seen the performance of Morocco in the Men's World Cup. We want to see the Moroccan spirit in you in this World Cup. That Morocco being labeled as a first-round exit team went to the semi-final. We want you to go there and make Africa proud and get into the knockout stages, second round first, and then in the final stages. I know the whole nation is behind you. SAFA is behind you. And we look forward, as you get on the plane tonight, that you travel in comfort, and that you arrive there safe, and will immediately focus on the task at hand to prepare for Costa Rica in preparation for your final game against Sweden. And we want to wish you all the best, and thank you very much for your sacrifice and contribution. And to the South African public, we want to assure you that all the issues that arose out of this process, we have to engage. And finally, at the back, we have the representative of Sasol. Thank you also very much to Sasol for being the only party that has supported, sponsored this team on its journey. And finally, there are 2 other companies who indicated that they will come forward and support. We will have to finalize that, but we have already indicated what is our target to the team, and we hope that we'll conclude all those things. But our commitment on what we've committed to them stands, and we will honor that commitment, as we did during the African Cup of Nations. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. It seems as South Africans we all have a common SOS that we reach out for. I've stood in many hotels in and around Sandton on these very stages with this very familiar background because somebody had made a call. It happened with the PSL, it happened with churches in South Africa, and et cetera, et cetera. And each time, a common call is made and answered. And that call is always to the Motsepe Foundation. Another reason why we're here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a big resounding round of applause as I call up the co-founder and CEO of the Motsepe Foundation, Chancellor of the University of Cape Town, and a champion of gender equality, who not only calls for equality, but doesn't just speak about it, acts on it. A lady who has gone on to act on her actions as she launched the Center for Gender Equality, Wellness and Leadership. Please assist me in a big round of applause for Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe.
I need my mic.
Can we get a mic, please? There we go.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And Minister, thank you very much for inviting the Motsepe Foundation to be part of this very important event this afternoon. Thank you, President of SAFA, the President of the South African Football Unions, and to everyone here, the media, Deputy Minister, the Chairman of Mamelodi Sundowns, dare I say. And very importantly, I'm so pleased to be here to see our Banyana Banyana getting ready for a very important match. Dr. Jordana, I was in Morocco as well, watching as the ladies were playing so well, making us so proud. I remember seeing you, Desiree, walking up and down, so nervous, sweating. I felt for you. It was tough, and yet you made it. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are our champions. And we have to treat them as such. We have to treat them as champions. They deserve it. They put their lives, they sweat, they bleed for our country. And it's very, very important that they receive the support that they deserve. When the foundation was requested by the Ministry of Sports, Arts and Culture and SAFA to assist in resolving the dispute between SAFA and Banyana Banyana, we thought this was an important matter of unity, yes, because sports has that ability to unite all of us. But I think for me personally, and Andy, I think Andile, you captured it very well. It's really about this moment that we're facing again of paying lip service to gender equality. We end up here because we do not do what we say we will do. It's mostly rhetoric. We talk about it, and when it comes to doing, we really fall short. We always say that sports is a beautiful game, and I've been very honored, very lucky to actually see this in action. Sports is indeed a beautiful game, one that is able to unite, inspire, and bring all of us, doesn't matter whether you're black or white, what culture you are, what religion you are, it brings us together. And this is what Madiba also said about sports, that it has that power to unite us. But sports is also a mirror to the broader issues that face us in society. It has a way of bringing those issues out, the issues that we grapple with, because sports reveals the challenges such as the income inequality. We talk about the pay gap, and we've been talking about the pay gap forever. We talk about gender-based violence, and we've been talking about this forever. We talk about the lack of opportunities for young girls. We talk about the scarcity of support for development for young girls and women. And these are things that happen not only in sports, but also in business, in our businesses. It's at grassroots developmental levels, and there are still very many opportunities that are available for male athletes than we have for female athletes. These are issues that face our players. And the last few years with the COVID pandemic have made this reality even worse. So the reason I'm saying for us it is momentous. We need to make sure that we catch and close the gaps that have been created by COVID. We've been left behind, we've been, we have regressed because of COVID, and we need to speed up the process of ensuring that we focus on the important matters of gender equality. From this year, as part of our commitment to ensuring that women's sports really plays an important role, we have committed as the foundation to expand the Motsepe Football Schools Cup to include girls so that we can add another essential work of supporting women in sports through the grassroots and development. What we would really like to do is to call on all South Africans, and I'm going to start with the media, and you do amazing work in terms of supporting, ensuring that our women's sports is covered. I was very impressed. I watched Sizwe Mpofu Walsh last night interviewing a journalist who was talking very passionately about issues of women football. He was raising these issues, and that is important. But I want to say this also, we can do more. We can definitely do more. The back page of one of the newspapers today heads off with rugby, and our football players are right somewhere at the bottom. Surely that's not right. We need to make sure that we put the spotlight on current events, and what is currently happening in our country is that Banyana Banyana are going to the World Cup, and we should all be proud of it. I call on all mums. Mommy, I'm so happy to see you here. I've been a football mom myself forever. I call on parents to ensure that we support our kids in whatever field they choose to follow, and in football, we must be there to support them in any sports. I call on the football fraternities and unions. I hope you guys will really begin to constructively address the issues of gender inequality in sports. We have a huge and a wonderful opportunity of addressing the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 of gender equality through sports. We can do it through sports. Sports inspires young people. Sports ensures that our young people stay in schools. It has those multiplier effects in terms of what it can do in health as well as in education. I call on every one of us here today to ensure that we support our women in sports, we support our women in whatever field we are in. Count yourself in as one of the people who will not be quiet when there is an issue of sexual harassment, gender-based violence, unequal pay, discrimination of women in the workplace, as well as in sports. You have to speak up. There is a very famous Swahili word that says, 1,000 begins with 1. And it takes every one of us, every single one of us, to ensure that gender equality becomes a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. But Dr. Precious, like a show. You were a football mum. Cut-ups. Rufino, when you come back, I want to see a one-on-one, one pal. I want to see something. I actually thought you were going to give us something, you know, when you said greeting the Sundowns chairman, you know, punkununks. Oh, you know, I'm sure Kokuntung is not chairman of Sundowns. Tell me, what is it? My baby. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. But what's most important is there seems to be a synergy, and it makes sense in fruition, because when he took office, and I think it was on the 21st of March in 2021, I could be mistaken, President Motsepe said that, and I quote, "We want women's football to be significantly grown and progressed in the period of my presidency." This small symbol and an action, once again, to that promise. So thank you so much, the Motsepe Foundation. A big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time when I'm going to ask that we take some questions. I'm going to jot them as many as possible down. If the question has been asked already, please let's all listen to each other so we don't have a repetitive matter. We're already behind the scheduled time that we thought we would have reached. But in saying that, the Vice President of...
They would like to leave now.
Oh yes, in saying that, if we can please release the team, Banyana Banyana. They do still have fittings of their suits that they need to go to before they're off to the plane. I think we can stay. They're off to the airport a little bit later on this evening to represent you and I against Sweden, Italy, and Argentina. The entire team. I'm going to take as many questions from the floor as possible. We'll group them and just let us know where it is that question, and perhaps you would know where they're better suited. Is there a mic roving around? There is a mic here. Vice President of the South African Football Players Union, Terhumnyai, who's also here with us, we acknowledge you. I hear he's here. So if you can please raise your hand if you do have a question. Okay, if we can please move the side. There's 2 questions here, 3 questions here. Just as per usual protocol for asking questions, please announce yourself and where you're from, and then we will then take your questions, group them, and try and answer them all at one go. Is there a mic? Yeah. The light is in my face, so I won't be...
Hello.
Ooh, can we have that mic, please? Thank you so much. Please just who you are and your question, and then we'll pass the mic around. Thank you.
Okay. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Mamadou Guy, Soccer Africa Super Sport. My question will go to Dr. Precious Motsepe. Now, the Motsepe Foundation, as we've seen today, is a peacemaker, is a solution provider, but voices rise in the continent, knowing that the founder, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, is also the CAF president, and Banyana Banyana is just only one among the 4 representatives Dr. Danny Jordan just mentioned here. Will you extend that goodwill, that good heart to the rest of the other teams going to represent Africa? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mamadou. I do completely acknowledge it, and I will at some instance pass it, but I think the larger part is going to be this is not of CAF business, where Dr. President Motsepe is the president of, but Motsepe Foundation, to whom is hosting us this morning actually, but I will let her answer after we've gathered a couple more questions. Thank you so much, Mamadou, I appreciate it.
Good day to everyone. Vuyo from Newsroom Africa. My question goes to Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe. I know SAFA president has already touched on it a bit in terms of the financials. Maybe getting it from your side, ma'am, just the conversation that you've of course had with the ministry and also SAFA. What were just giving us a financial breakdown of what you sort of agreed on in terms of this. I know SAFA president touched on it a bit, but to get it from your side, just the financial breakdown.
So what is the contribution from the Motsepe Foundation?
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there any more? Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, morning. Thank you very much for addressing us. This is to Dr. Danny Jordan. You spoke eloquently about supporting women's football and the team, and I just wanted to know why it got to this point before the players' concerns were addressed seriously. Why did it have to become a furore, so to speak? Thank you
so much. I appreciate that. Well, we can take one more.
Yeah.
Please pass it on.
Yeah. Velile from SABC.
Oh, Velile, please stand there. Couldn't see you. Terribly sorry.
Okay. Yes. I've got two questions. Maybe to SAFPU President, if you can just expand on the details around the pending meeting that you're going to have with the SAFA President after this. And also, saw a statement that was questioning the representation of SAFPU of the players, and that there appears to be no relationship between SAFPU and SAFA. Can you please expand on this?
Thank you very much, Velile. I appreciate it. There was one more next week. Go for it.
Sazi.
Hola, Saz.
Arena Holdings. To the union president, I just want him to address us on the breakdown. What exactly have they signed with SAFA? And we need clear figures on who's getting what out of all this deal that has been signed. Thank you.
One last question to Dr. Jordan and to the Sports Minister. As happy as we all are to have reached a settlement to this, and I'm sure we need to look forward and support Banyana, does there need to be an introspection in football and further investigation, internal from SAFA and from a government level, into what went wrong? And this is not a first occurrence of things going wrong in football. Does football have a privileged position that it doesn't seem to get government investigation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think I'll stop it there for now and get the answers. And if we are to have more questions after these have been answered, then we'll maybe perhaps take one last round. Dr. Precious, I'll perhaps begin with you on the two questions that Mamadou asked, as well as how much the contribution is.
Thank you. I'll start with the first question on the quantum. I believe this was really a gesture to get the team to leave because there was a gap that seems to hinder discussions and negotiations. So it's not the amount that I am here to talk about. It's really coming in to assist and to make sure that the team can travel and focus on the task at hand. We all know how important issues of mental health and focus, playing the game with the mind, that's critically important. I think the second question on the gift to other teams on the continent, the Motsepe Foundation has been involved in sports for a very, very long time, even before the gentleman who's CAF president came.
That guy.
We support schools football. We have about 11,000 schools that participate in our football competitions. And Peter, you must just correct me if I'm wrong. We've got about 4,000 schools that participate in netball. We've got the Stedford, which is also, for targeting young kids at school. So in terms of development of sports at grassroots, we have been very, very involved. And on the continent, we have just recently made a big commitment to develop football at school level, and this includes both boys and girls.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Dr. Jordan, there were questions that were asked to you as well, including why did it have to get here? How did it linger enough for it to have gotten to where it is now?
Well, we've indicated already that one of the things that must happen is that the contracts must be concluded earlier. Now, you would appreciate that the primary player is with the club. They are there playing every Saturday. They get released based on a FIFA calendar, and then they come to the national team. So the time frame is very short, and that's why we said, in terms of major competitions, like the African Cup of Nations, like the World Cup, when the coach announces, because remember, we cannot have a contract with you if the coach didn't pick you. That is first. The coach must select his squad. We then must sit down and finalize the contract. And the other thing that we must do is, because there was another question, and the president of the union has already indicated, after this meeting, we're going to discuss that issue, the relationship between the union and SAFA. I think that was made already. So why the furor is always any negotiation start that the demand is there and the ability of the association, there's a big gap. And so during the process of negotiations, there must be a closing of that gap through compromise and understanding and putting national duty, national pride, and the country as part of that process. And then finally the parties come to a compromise position, and it is something that you can predetermine. It is part of the process. And I think the president of the union has already said it was a long and difficult process. But what we are here is that process is now concluded. We're finalized. We had to find additional revenue. We did that. And so the team can go knowing that everything has been concluded. What we said, an earlier start to the process will be something that we must do.
I think it was Uvelile, in lieu of the statement sent out by SAFA, of course, on the relationship between SAFPU and SAFA, who wanted to know what is the relationship between SAFPA and SAFA?
The fact of the matter is, it is something that I think we both recognize in this process that must be formalized and concluded. And I think he's already spoken about that issue. So it must be formalized, it must be concluded. Then the breakdown I can't speak about. I cannot answer that question, but simply say that we have received enough revenue money to satisfy the demand.
Thank you very much, Dr.
The
Tenny.
final question of, I think it's him, Mark. He wants an investigation, I don't know into what, because sometimes negotiations is adversarial. Negotiations is a give and take. It's difficult. And every party must put its own best interest. It would be strange if we meet the union and they just come and sign and agree. It's a difficult adversarial process sometimes. Now, well, he can investigate it, but I can tell him now, there are many strikes, and you see some of the strikes, what happens in the streets, because the parties are pushing they have a responsibility, otherwise it's not worth called a union if you don't pursue vigorously the interests of your members. So I think he can assist him in that investigation.
To protect Mark, he did say introspection. Mark? But yeah, Dr. Jordan saying go for it. He's more than welcome for you to go into there. That now comes to you, President of the South African Players Union, Football Players Union, to speak now on the two issues that were raised with you, the details on the meeting post this, as well, of course, to further embellish on what Dr. Jordan has said on the relations.
I think relationship by their nature living organs. And I think we do have a relationship with SAFA. I don't think I know. We do have a relationship. We have a cooperation agreement with SAFA. But from time to time, because time comes and time passes, you need to re-look and revisit those relationships. So the details, we'll have to iron them out in terms of where do we want to take these relationships going forward. It doesn't mean there is no relationship, there is, but we want an improvement from time to time on what we need to do. As you know, the issues of collective bargaining are central when you come to labor relations. So we need to move from corporations to labor. But like you said, we will iron out and we will definitely appraise yourselves in terms of where that process is. And I think in terms of the meeting, because it's not only about that relationship, but that will also include, which Dr. Jordan will also tell you, that when we meet, we talk about the development of football. We ask tough questions, including the issues of succession. Where are we going as a country in terms of football and everything else? So those are the discussions that we want to have, and they must be had. Where are we going? You have heard Dr. Precious talking about the issues of commitment to women development. Where are we? What are we doing? What is it that we can do? So that there are tangible issues. But we also talk about issues, including the role of government in all these things, to say, as an enabler, what kind of role must they play? How do they assist football to develop? Issues surrounding, which I think the media doesn't deal with them a lot, a great deal, around issues of sponsorship. Because sponsorship is still very wide. It's still very a preserve of the few, previously advantaged. We sit and we talk about those things to say, yes, we do understand that there are these challenges. Once we accept that we have 1, 2, 3, but also the question is that why can't we then increase this kitty that will enable that we have the Andiles, the Janes, and everybody else in this. And we implore you as the media to really raise those questions and write and all that. But we'll appraise you as well to talk about. It's not only about the relationship that gets sometimes to be toxic between ourselves and the South African Football Association. They are an authority of football, and we must always ask them tough questions because we are interested. They need to build the future of our kids. It's not about us, but it's our kids. If we concern about the future of this thing, that's where we need to go. I'm just saying those are some of the things that we'll, of course, be talking about. But the most important part, because I've been mandated to talk about, it's around the issues. The issue of the quantum can be dealt with at a later stage. What we have agreed ourselves, and sometimes we do in discussions, we discuss in good faith, and we would have agreed to some of these things, and I must put it out there because there would have been an intervention between ourselves and the ministry, but importantly, that there's also the foundation. We know that no one would want to be compromised in this. So what we have agreed necessarily was that at least by the time the ladies leave, because we have a contract and we've divided it into two. There's a contract, we'll deal with issues of the terms, but there's a fundamental issue that talks about remuneration that had to be agreed. So we have an annexure. So that annexure will be signed by the players, and that annexure, part of the annexure would say
There's this money that we receive from FIFA. There are issues in terms of what FIFA has been agreed, travel accommodation and what have you. They will find their expression in that annex. But over and above, there is this additional income that would come from the association, which is 230 for the players, as well as the 115 for staff. So those things, and at least there's been a commitment from the president of SAFA to say they will go out and raise this issue so that they address. He himself had said the negotiations were tough, but we had to deal with that. By our very nature, we need to deal with all these issues as it were. So in each and every contract, we have allowances and all other things. So that's exactly where we are. You said, did we sign? We have not signed that document. We have not signed it, but we have agreed to say these are the things, and that is why we are going. It's only a matter of, because we finished I think, early hours of this morning, dealing with some of these issues, and they must find expression within the court. You don't just want to sign an empty contract. We have got legal process in there. They need to work it in, and I know that when we leave here, we should be able to sign all those other matters. And I think, Andile, those are
I'm just going
that were
to,
raised.
if you don't mind me, just to just get clarity on this. So over and above the $30,000 that we're all aware of, because I mean, of course, FIFA did send that out, there's a 230,000 rands for a player, that per player that they're going to get, and 150,000 rands per staff member going with them, part of the technical team.
That's what we say.
Am I understanding you correctly?
Your understanding is correct. However, we must agree that the 30,000 is what you would get when you don't make it beyond the group stages for a period. So it will go to 30,000 because we know we will go to the last 16, then they'll get 60, we'll go to quarter, they will get 90. Then when we win it, of course, there are those figures. When we win it, they'll come home with 270 because that's what the champions are going to get. So we go in there on the 20th to...
With the minimum of the 30.
With all of us here to go and collect the trophy and coming back. So those are minimums. So when you're talking 30,000, it's a minimum. That will be there. But all those things, they must find expression. Simply meaning, if we lose, we go as far as the quarterfinal, we'll only get what's provided for in that quarterfinal, because FIFA cannot pay anything that you have not really won there. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. I
hope
appreciate
that clarifies.
It does. It does. And lastly, there's so many things that government is doing and looking into so much in this country. Is Banyana Gate next? Mark wanted to know, introspective into football, Minister.
No, as you are aware, I mean, one of the things that we appreciate even by today is a collaboration between government, private and public sector. We are aware that not everything that government can do. If you look at the lack or the absence of rural sport infrastructure, government on its own will not be able to put all rural sport infrastructure throughout the country in areas where there's never been rural infrastructure before. So it is through this collaboration with the Motsepe Foundation, and we make a call to others too to join. I mean, we're talking about areas that still have smart schools without any field in schools, and yet we're talking about school sport. So it is that partnership that we will need. But I must make this point, and I know it was not a good...
Yeah, and in full man.
No,
I'm going to be doing this next door.
I know this question was not asked. I listened to one program, a radio program this morning. It was not you because you're in the evening.
I was waiting for that.
And one contributor says, maybe one of the ways to contribute to the development and professionalization of the Women's League is that we must encourage the national clubs to establish women clubs. Mm. I know that one of the clubs is here, I won't mention by name. But then she says, the reason is because we can associate those players who play in the national team with those national clubs. We can say we want to watch this player because he plays for that club.
Yeah.
And I think that was very encouraging. And I think we must make a call to our national clubs. There are many, at least the top 3 that I know must have women's club. And I think in that way, it will be part of professionalizing women's football, and as well as making sure that we strengthen the women's football league.
Minister, just to also go on what you've said now, when you speak about the collaboration between yourself and the Motsepe Foundation, Is there any monetary value coming from the ministry in terms of that collaboration?
No, of course. You know that the way we interact with sport generally, it is through federations. So the money we'll give to federation, for example, us as a department. The results may be something else about whether indeed we've seen over a period of time, but we're very deliberate about our funding through federations to make sure that it focuses on women development and women's football.
So it's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
It's continuous. I'm not sure if that didn't fully answer everyone's question.
Except that I need to join Banyana Banyana at the airport. Yeah.
So I'm going to take just, I don't think there's any anyway. Guys, this is squeezing in. I'm been told I must cut it. So I'm going to literally take 2 questions. And then we got to get a move on. We did start a little bit late and we apologize for that. So whoever's got a mic, like you, please go for it. Keep it tight. And please don't ask something that's already been asked. Terribly sorry. 5 minutes and we will all be out of here.
President, this one's for you. Thanks again for Motsepe Foundation for saving the day. But President, isn't it a concern for you as the President of the FA that Motsepe Foundation is coming and contributing to our football? Does it whether undermines your contribution as the President to our football in South Africa? Because now we have K Motsepe schools, we have APC Motsepe League, we have the Motsepe Foundation Championship, and they've also in partnership with the PSL. So does it also concern you or undermines your authority as the FA President? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just one last one. Where are we? Go for it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Andile Jabulane, Power 98.7. Maybe this question have been answered. Probably I didn't get it much clear.
Then don't ask it.
But I will direct it straight to the Minister of Sports. I mean, it's not a secret that lately there has been unethicalism in terms of administering money that comes from FIFA to SAFA and that has to go to our national teams. We have had Banyana Banyana, complaining about bonuses and so forth. So my question is, what are the measures that have been put in place to make sure that, we rectify or at least we solve this blunder that we have in terms of money that comes from FIFA and has to go to our national teams? Thank you.
Transparency between the money that comes in from SAFA. All right, I'm going to... Oh, guys, you're going to get me fired. I'm going to get paid half today. Please, I can't say no, it's a lady. Can you imagine on a day such as this?
No, Shlonim Timkulu from ENCA. I don't know if I can make this request, but given what has played out over the past few days, can we possibly air out all the questions that we have, given the seriousness of this issue? I understand people are pressed for time, but if that is at all possible. Anyway, my questions are, just in terms, this is to the Minister and to the President of the Association, why must South Africans support the bid for the 2027 World Cup, given what's played out over the past few days and given the association's treatment of its players, the calls that were made about the bus not traveling over the weekend, that we've got visuals of security at the stadium barring players from entering the stadium. So why should South Africans believe or support the association's call for the 2027 World Cup? Also, just again on the prize money, and unfortunately we're going back to the women's AFCON, that 400,000. At what point is SAFA going to get to a point where it's not dependent on a mother body to pass off prize money? Because that 400,000 was the 9.2 million that was prize money from last year. So it's not, and I mean, we had this whole thing last year about that, but given that now FIFA has clarified that they are giving 30,000 at least US dollars, then the association must make its own plan. When will, first of all, why is that money being passed off as SAFA money? But also, when will the association get to a point where it's awarding money from its own coffers and not dependent on the mother body?
Thank you very much. That's the Secretary General of the South African Football Journalists Association there. Dr. Denny, I think a lot of those are being pointed to your directions and your questions.
I'm on. I think let us just deal with the question of the money from FIFA. FIFA send you the money. They send you a document called the contract of agreed objectives. In other words, when they give you money, in that contract, they actually allocate this amount must go for women's football, this amount goes for coach development, this amount, and so on. And then they send their own auditors, not SAFA auditors. They send their own auditors to audit. Now the matter is very simple. Write to FIFA and ask FIFA for the audit reports. It's that simple. Because if you steal $1, you can be rest assured you will not be funded the next year. In this case, and that's why I said to you, in this case, FIFA's letter is explicit. This 30,000 must go to the players, they will come and audit it, and the other money, they'll come and audit it. So FIFA does not give you money in a bag that you can do whatever you want to. They transfer the money with specific instructions, and I think you are at liberty to go to FIFA, ask the CEO, CEO, I want to see the contract of agreed objectives. And they will show you. So there is no issue. And therefore, our financial credibility in SAFA, in FIFA, is beyond question. Absolutely. And we must just investigate or inspect these things. The question of the 2027 and in relation to what has happened. If you want to see a strike and a negotiations and so, go to France. No one will say, France must not get the World Cup. So these issues are temporary. It is our responsibility to deal with it decisively and immediately. And we said, maybe we started too late. Earlier. So I don't think that the world will say, because you had a bus strike or a rail strike, you must now not be considered. These things are normal, and not only in our country, in every other country. The bird, and I don't want to speak to the bird. Here's the bird chair. You can put those questions to her. She's quite competent and capable to answer all those questions. So I would suggest you can engage her on the bid, because I don't want to talk about it further on the bid.
I think the last one was around, sorry? I think which 400,000? Oh, from last year, from WAFCON. Okay, while you sort it out, I think the one that we did get clearly, Dr. Jodan.
400,000 from WAFCON of last year have been paid. I think the players have forgotten about that money already.
Okay, just for clarity, I was asking when will the association have its own money to pay players instead of passing off governing body money as its own money, given that now FIFA said we're giving you this money for the players and the association has made its own plan as well, which is what the England strike is also about.
Thank you so much, Tony. I think that goes hand in hand with the question that was asked earlier. Dr. Jodan, it's been asked about the association and its coffers. The mere reason that Motsepe Foundation had to come in is because of the coffers of SAFA not being able to fit the bill. When will SAFA be stable enough financially to be able to fit its own bill to its players?
For women's football, for the last 11 years, we only had one sponsor, SASO. And that sponsor, you have to multiply it by 5 to cover all the costs. I don't want to give you the figures of that sponsorship, but let me tell you, we add 3 times more of that amount to cover Banyana. Now, bonus payments is the product of negotiations. It's only then that you realize, hey, we need another 5 million and 10 million, and then you have to find it. And our obligation when we walk off from the negotiating table, we must honor that agreement. And as I said, when we made the commitment to 400,000, we honored that agreement. The government then came and added, and provincial governments added, and other people added, SASOL added. So they got much more than what is being agreed. I'm sure that if this team performs well, and they go to second round and to the knockout stages. South Africans, knowing the generosity of the spirit of South Africans and the pride they have in Banyana, they will come and add. So I expect it all depends on their performance, and I think you will tell you in the end what the position is. But for now, I think we settled the matter, and I hope that we can move on.
And in closing, Minister, I think the same question that was asked to Dennis Jordan that
thank
he
you very
briefly
much.
answered.
The first question, let me just answer a question I think was asked by Mark earlier. We will not be able to avoid a repeat if we don't deal with what led to and what happened. But we avoided that be part of negotiations of the past 48 hours. We are not going to make progress. But certainly we have to go back at some point. What led to so that we avoid it? The second question which was asked, federations have their own governance structures. They've got their own service providers such as assurance providers, ethics, and audit and risk committees. So they do all of that. At an appropriate time, if there's any irregularity, either the minister on behalf of government will make that intervention. At the moment, there is no need of such intervention, except to make the point, Hloni, which you asked yesterday, about 2027. You don't cut your nose when you are angry. You may just in spite of face. So I think whatever challenges we face, there's a lot of benefits of hosting international games, both for the economy as well as also for the country in terms of nation building and social cohesion. Just 2 events. In Cape Town, we hosted something called Formula E. It contributed 2.4 billion to the economy. That's an international event for the first time in the country. There are many such events. So there's a lot of economy in hosting these events. So I don't think we must cut our nose, otherwise we won't look good after that because we are angry about certain things. But thank you very much. We are just happy as government that finally the team is leaving to join the World Cup, that the matter has now been resolved. The other details will be dealt by gentlemen on my left.
With that being said, they have to go and join the team. I've been told very strictly that I must wrap it up and close it. I think through our radio shows, through our television shows, and what we write on our blogs and in our newspapers, this conversation may carry on and can carry on. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Really do appreciate it. To all the dignitaries as well who did join us this afternoon rather. It is afternoon now. Thank you very much. Stay, have a drink and have a nibble. We have kept you long enough here. CEO, are you well? From a SAFA point of view. Right, I've just been told, if you get just 2 seconds, to all members of the media, I've just spoken to the CEO of SAFA, and they've